Hello, welcome to Face to Face, our weekly show devoted to events which matter most to Europe, Ukraine and Poland. I'm your host Adam Jasa. And with me in the studio is TVP World's Editor-in-Chief, Michał Broniatowski. Michał, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Another eventful week, and we're here to discuss it on the first day of spring.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's been 18 degrees today in Warsaw. You forgot, because you've been in the building all the time. So anyway, it's sunshine, but this should not fool us. It's not a good day for Europe, is it?
Well, especially for Ukrainians. If they hoped for something new coming from good signal, coming from the capital of the European Union, from Brussels, they heard another promises and no decisions. And paradoxically, earlier in the week, we witnessed real change, fundamental change, in the biggest member of the European Union, which is Germany, which was always accused of being slowest in change, in any changes inside the EU, and suddenly they changed constitution. In a span.
Let's go back for a moment to this EU summit.
Okay, good.
Because, there were high expectations. If you read some of the headlines in newspapers, including Politico, it was like high important summit, Europe will move forward, and then Hungary blocks it again.
Well, it didn't block it because they used this old trick of making an annex to the main communique.
In terms of a hard decision.
Even if it was unanimous, it wouldn't have been a firm decision because, in fact, no breakthrough was decided. At least this is how we see it. And plus, another concrete idea which was proposed by Kaja Kallas, the EU foreign minister, who wanted to create a quick solution for immediate problems and collect 40 or buy weapons worth $40 billion by the countries, the member states. It was flatly rejected.
Yes, by France and Italy.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes it's really hard to follow the logic of some of these leaders because Macron is making, a lot of arguments about now it's time for Europe, strategic autonomy, this and that, another meeting in Paris, let's do something, and then he blocks stuff. It's just very hard to understand. Maybe you can help us to understand that.
Well, I'm afraid this won't be a sweet conclusion. The problem is, first of all, what happened? Mrs. Kallas forgot to talk to other members of the European Union.
So they're showing her
yes, her place. Well, in fact, the place of the position in which she sits, it's not to be a leader, but coordinator of the, at least it is seen like that by other members, and her job should be to coordinate a single foreign policy of the European Union. Well, coordinating it is impossible by definition, so she tried to lead it and hit the wall.
But it's just staggering that, there's always so much pent-up expectation before a summit or when these leaders talk big, and then so little emerges from it. And even in areas where the EU actually has capacity to act, and I want to talk about the Russian assets frozen in Europe. We're talking about 300 billion, is it? 300 billion euros worth of assets.
And they're now no decision.
And they're exactly no decision. And, the time is running out because if Hungary blocks the extension of sanctions, by July, these sanctions expire, and Russia will just sign a transfer, the money goes back to Russia to fund its war effort. Forget about using this money to reconstruct Ukraine. And, instead of using this as leverage in all these peace negotiations, saying, okay, by the way, we have that money, and until Russia does what it's supposed to do, no money for you, and we will use it to reconstruct you, nothing. And the Belgian, I'm sorry, I'm talking too long, but, I was just stunned to read what the Belgian Prime Minister said. He was having a playful news conference at the end of the summit, where he said, "Frozen Russian assets are not Putin's little piggy bank that you can just break with a hammer and then take the money out and spend it on whatever you want." You know, he's making fun of it.
The problem of Belgium is that the institution which holds this money is in Belgium. So it would be Belgium which would be taken to court by Russia in future. If this...
Russia taking somebody to court?
Why not?
Okay, well, I think the last time I looked, it was Russia breaking international law and, you know, escaping any scrutiny.
Yes, but this is the problem of leadership. Because if the tail is moving the dog...
Wags the dog, yeah.
And the dog being big politicians, and the tail is just...
the Prime Minister of a small country at the end.
Legal expert in Brussels. You know, all these small print here and there, and there's nobody.
But you see, they're not even learning from Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump just does things. Okay, you can disagree with this. You can say, okay, well, you know, he's ruining the global order, but he moves, and Europe is contemplating forever. And really, by July, this story is going to be over.
No, they will find solution. You know, they always find solutions.
Okay, well, today you're playing the role of the optimist.
Yes, yeah, but you know, the problem is really the situation on the front in Ukraine. In all that, they are listening to Ukraine, but their main concern seems not to be the big picture, but their main concern is that they are not allowed to the table by President Trump. This is their main concern. When Germany does, and this probably will prompt you to ask me questions, but when Germany does something, instead of big enthusiasm, they are stopped, they are delayed.
Right. Well, which brings me to the second question I had for you, which is, you know, it seems sometimes that this EU unity is a fetish. You know, the leaders keep talking about we need unity, and then there is never unity, right? And what does it say about the reality of the EU? Is the current formula of the EU, maybe the Eurosceptics are right, that the current formula of the EU is just exhausted?
Parts of legal framework on which European Union is built is faulty in many cases. You know, there is obvious case with, for example, Hungary, which is vetoing all decisions concerning support for Ukraine. It clearly shows the problem.
Institutional limits.
Yeah, but it's, you know, this unanimity in the organization, which consists of 27 members. It's like imposing unanimity on a parliament. You know, it's this rule is actually not empowering Europe. It's empowering little leaders, little
and in
autocrats.
this particular case, someone who's very friendly with Mr. Putin.
You know, giving him something which is called liberum veto.
Yes, in Poland we're familiar with.
Yeah, we're very familiar because it led to the disappearance of Poland for over 100 years.
That's right. So, you know, you mentioned Germany, but in a sense, Germany is also a good example of this, right? Because, you know, Germany claims to be invested in Europe, in European unity, and then they go and unilaterally change things. And the paradox is that, you know, Germany just agreed to change its constitution to remove a debt limit of 60% of the value of the economy, which many economists have been criticizing for years as crippling to the German economy and to Europe. So, on the face of it, it's a positive development that Germany decided to lift this limit and spend big on infrastructure, on the economy, on rearming itself. But at the same time, Germany also tried to sneak in a change in EU fiscal rules, but benefiting not the EU as a union, but benefiting Germany in particular. And, you know, people are furious because Germany has, you know, nearly collapsed the Eurozone defending some of these fiscal rules. And now they're saying,
You're talking about Greece.
Greece, Spain, Italy, France nearly collapsed.
You know, it's, of course, they are taking care of their own interest. The problem with what happened last week in Germany, they changed constitution in order to allow bigger investment in defense, but at the same time they also agreed to inject 500 billion euros into German economy, into green policy and infrastructure. What does it mean? It means that German government needs to borrow. When it borrows, its cost of borrowing grows. So the bonds, the German
bonds, yes, the bonds.
They are called bonds.
Yes, they're called bonds. Mm-hmm.
Which are by default treated as a benchmark for borrowing bonds elsewhere in Europe.
Particularly in the Eurozone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they grow,
the cost for borrowing rises for everybody. Exactly. But then the Europeans are saying, okay, but then let's move to European borrowing, because European borrowing is going to be cheaper. And then Germany says no.
Exactly.
So, you know, another example of unilateral action by an important EU member state.
You know, this is a very, very good example of national interests clashing with the interests of the whole Union. Because, I don't think there's a way to solve it.
You're escaping my question.
Which was what?
Which is, has the current formula of the EU exhausted?
No, I answered this question. I said...
partially.
Legal framework needs to be changed because Europe is going in a good direction.
So you're siding with the Polish Prime Minister who said by 2030 Europe will be powerful.
You know, Europe can be, powerful meaning more powerful than Russia.
Correct.
It can be now, but you need to start spending. And when you start spending, not telling everybody, don't buy from US and who? United Kingdom. Can you imagine? United Kingdom, which is an engine of this support for Ukraine, is suddenly told by, especially France, no, we are not going to buy from you.
Well, you know, okay. Let's move on to another subject. Perhaps, you know, we shouldn't be so frivolous about it. You know, the ceasefire talks and you know, what has happened this week. There was supposed to be a 30-day ceasefire. Mr. Putin allegedly, according to President Trump, said yes. However...
Well, there is always comma, but.
But, and this but is really capital letters.
This but is just, you know, they agreed with Putin over the phone, Trump and Putin, to limit this ceasefire, which is non-ceasefire, in fact. They agreed to stop bombing energy installations.
And the next day the Russians bombed...
What next day? Half an hour after, after they finished.
I'm behind schedule.
A small electric station in Donetsk was attacked by Shahids, not talking about attack on Kyiv. This is how Mr. Putin is playing Trump. Not to mention the fact that if there is really, indeed, for 30 days, this ceasefire only on rocket attacks, missiles attacks, it means that Ukraine is banned from using its own real weapon against Russia, which is sending long-range drones to bomb their refineries. We see every day.
So the Russians have already destroyed a lot of Ukrainian
but Ukrainians are also good at that. But now they want ceasefire, which would, you know, cripple Ukraine.
Okay, so there is another round of talks, right, at the weekend in Jeddah. Maybe just to tease you a little bit, you know, you quoted the Polish Prime Minister, so I'm going to quote Radosław Sikorski, the Polish Foreign Minister, and let's see if you like what he's had to say today. He said on British television, he said, Trump's approach is unusual, but he's spending his executive time on the issue, the Ukraine. So he cares about success. I think that the Russians would be making a mistake if they took Trump for granted. I think he's capable of changing his policies rather rapidly, and if he decides that Putin is crossing him or being uncooperative, his people have said all along, including to me personally, said the minister, that they could ramp up sanctions and ramp up support for Ukraine. I think he's giving Putin a chance to exit this disastrous war with face. I shocked you.
Yes, you shocked me with not with what Mr. Sikorski says, but it reveals the way of thinking of the U.S. president, who wants to present himself as a peacekeeper, and not only he's missing his goal in Ukraine, but also in Gaza Strip.
Yes.
There is war is back in Gaza. So his main projects for the world, peace project for the world, are falling apart. So yes, it would be good if he could do a turnaround and this time act against Russia. But I don't trust he would do it, because his major plan, I believe, is to first of all marginalize Europe and treat Ukraine like a small, weak country which you can, throw around.
Yes, I was surprised to hear that the Americans are now talking about taking control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant in Ukraine, which is now occupied by the Russians. And that would mean reopening the negotiations in the mineral deal with Ukraine. What's your take on this?
I think it's outrageous. These are, in every country, mineral resources and energy grid are the main tools of, or among main tools of exerting central power in the country. And suddenly, President of the United States is taking advantage of the very bad situation of Ukraine, is taking it away from them,
right,
forcing them to it, forcing them brutally, because he stops in order to convince them. He's stopping deliveries of arms and sharing intelligence. It's
So you're slightly disagreeing here with Minister Sikorski. You don't think this is still...
He knows better, so I am not disagreeing.
All right. Thank you, Michał, for these comments. It was a pleasure talking to you, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Face to Face. See you next week, and stay on with TVP World for more news and analysis.